Coming up on Focus Black Oklahoma, the first black mayor of an Oklahoma town talks about his plans to do things differently for the Idabel community. A historic election is set to take place among tribes which will finally consider the inclusion of their fellow black tribal members. We talk with descendants of civil rights pioneers of small-town Oklahoma about the legacy of their family's work to push their community into a more just future. We have a story on how black women are bringing recycling to their community and taking claim to a history of reducing and reusing. And we'll dive into the inequities within Oklahoma's growing cannabis industry with our series Blacks and Cannabis. All this and more coming up on Focus Black Oklahoma.
If you grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, you might leave high school without learning about your own city's history.
The first time that I learned about the 1921 race massacre was when I went to college.
I was never taught it. Why is that?
Listen to Blind Spot, Tulsa Burning, from the History Channel and WNYC Studios, in collaboration with KOSU and Focus Black Oklahoma. Listen wherever you find podcasts.
Support for Focus Black Oklahoma on KOSU comes from the Black Church Traditions and African American Faith Life program at Phillips Seminary, with a weekly chapel service celebrating Black History and African Heritage Month online at wherefaithleads.com/heritage.
Focus Black Oklahoma. I'm Ariel Davis.
And I'm Colby Webster.
The Cherokee Nation and other tribes are voting in historic elections to finally include freedmen thanks to a change to remove key language from their constitutions. Shalandra Harris has more.
Election season is underway for some tribes in Oklahoma, including the Cherokee Nation. In the Cherokee Nation, this election cycle is different from most in recent history because Marilyn Vann, a freedman descendant, was on the ballot after overcoming a challenge to her candidacy. This election was also the first after a recent change to the Cherokee Constitution to remove the by-blood language from their constitution. In the past few months, descendants of those formerly enslaved by the 5 tribes, also known as freedmen, have seen a willingness of some tribal leaders to have a conversation around the possibility of enrollment for these descendants. Charles Wilkes is a freedman descendant. He voted in the past election.
This would be my first time voting, and I am excited to see a freedman run. You know, there was a lot of the things going on in the court process, all of the challenges trying to keep it from happening, but we have the potential to have a freedman on the council, which is huge for representation, but huge for our move for power and reparations and change within the Cherokee Nation.
Many watched the Cherokee Nation elections in particular to see the outcome of Marilyn Vann's race. She ran for the tribal council at-large position.
To have somebody in that spot would be a huge beacon to say that we have a place, we have a voice, and quite frankly, we have a right.
Angela Walton Raji is a Choctaw Freedman descendant and author who has researched and studied Freedman history for the last 30 years. Angela said that Marilyn Vann's run for council was historic.
So, of course, she's making history, as she already has made history in terms of being an advocate over the last 20 plus years in terms of advocating for the rights of freedmen in the Cherokee Nation, as well as, of course, speaking on behalf of freedmen, of course, all the tribes have had issues.
In addition to being historic, Walton Raji says it helps others feel more comfortable getting involved.
I think it is important for other reasons too. Not just that, oh, she's making history. I think it's important that people have the right to participate on all levels in the nation.
Charles believes the impact freedmen had in this past election and will have in elections moving forward will be significant. He is also thinking of ways to increase voter engagement in the future.
I think the impact is huge. Joe Deere and I had been talking about North Tulsa and how there's about 12,000 Cherokees, Black Cherokees, that don't vote. When we look at the vote number just nationally, it's only about 8,000 or 9,000. Literally one community could hold a value of an entire nation. That's huge. That's something we're actually actively working on. We're looking to do some more voting registration measures and getting out the vote for information. You know, it's kind of started off slow, but especially in the next few years, we will be ramping it up.
Angela says that even though they're from different tribes, the Cherokee Nation election results could inspire freedmen of other tribes who have been fighting for the ability to enroll and be involved.
I think freedmen of other tribes have now a moral argument and a stronger argument based on a certain degree of fairness that's now being extended to their cousins in the Cherokee Nation. So that's what I think could be an impact on the other tribes.
The Cherokee Nation election took place on June 5th. Marilyn Van finished with 22% of the vote. For Focus, Black Oklahoma, I'm Shalandra Harrison in Oklahoma City.
The first black mayor in Idabel's 119-year history was recently elected, and there's much ground to cover as he tackles equity gaps for residents. Here's Nick Alexandrov.
You might have seen stories in recent years about a surge in black mayors across the country. Outlets like Bloomberg and The Atlantic report on people of color winning top positions in big cities. There's Keisha Lance Bottoms in Atlanta, for example, or Chokwe Antar Lumumba in Jackson, Mississippi. Like Atlanta, a city with a majority black population. This wave has hit Oklahoma as well. In Edmond, a former sundown town, Daryl Davis is the first black mayor. And Marlon J. Coleman holds the same position in Muskogee, where the Ku Klux Klan published its Weekly Herald newspaper in the 1920s, and where the Klan dropped recruitment flyers in 2014. But we can also see this political shift in places no one is talking about. I mean small, remote towns like Idabel, Oklahoma. Of its 6,900 residents, 43% are white and 21% are black. The drive to Idabel from Tulsa takes you through Glenpool, site of the epical oil well. Soon the forest cover thickens as you cross the western Ouachita Mountains. You keep driving, the Indian Nation Turnpike bringing you past McAllister and through Daisy and Antlers into Hugo. Then you cut east, deeper into the state's southeastern corner. That's where Idabel is. And on Saturdays there, at A1 Liquor and Wine on West Martin Luther King Avenue, 3 minutes from downtown, you'll find Craig Young at the counter.
I own my own business here for 25 years in June. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm the first black mayor in this city.
In other words, the first black mayor since Idabel's 1902 founding. It's a major achievement given the region's history. Racial violence plagued that part of the state, just as it did Tulsa and Osage County. In 1912, for example, whites attacked Broken Bow's Green City, segregated company housing that the Dierks Company built for black sawmill workers and their families. No one was killed, but half the black population fled the town, now a popular vacation escape, in its aftermath. More recently, in January 1980, Idabel itself underwent a 36-hour stretch that both echoed the Red Summer race riots and presaged the recent unrest in places like Minneapolis. Here's what happened. A white man shot black teenager Henry Johnson to death late one Saturday night. Johnson's family didn't learn of the murder until Sunday morning. That evening, 150 members of the black community gathered in protest, then torched a white nightclub. The police response was massive. 60 state troopers descended on Idabel, joined by officers from surrounding towns. Tensions persisted through Sunday night, and by dawn Monday, both a white police officer and a black man had been killed. 4 decades later, I caught up with the city's current mayor on a cool mid-April Saturday. In between visits from loyal liquor store patrons, he told me about his path to office.
I was a city councilman here from the year of 2003 to 2015. I was defeated in my run for my fourth term in 2015 and took 4 years off and decided, hey, you know what, I want to get in here and work harder for my city and have a better spot. So I decided I'd run for mayor in the year 2019. I guess I should say fortunate enough I was able to win that position.
But that was before COVID. So while Craig had priorities,
the infrastructure of our city and bringing jobs to our city, industry to our city.
These were, like everyone's, derailed last year.
We had to just go in and do a lot of things different. You know, we operate our city hall different. Our police department was operated different. Our restaurants has really suffered.
And Craig himself suffered from the virus.
When I had COVID, I thought, because COVID was really hard on me. And I thought, man, it was a couple of nights I didn't think I was going to wake up the next morning when I had COVID. And I thought, man, I'm just too weak, I'm not going to make it through the night. I lost 23 pounds with mine in no time. I just almost faded away.
In the coming months, Craig hopes to advance a number of equity-focused projects. One is for children.
What I'm working on is a handicap park for the kids. And in my heart, I just have to take care of that. I just got to get it done. So we wait on that. We've been trying to order different equipment for the kids. It'll be big, where you can swing set for wheelchairs and stuff like that. It'll be big.
Another relates to his status as black mayor of a majority white city.
And one thing mostly I want to work on, I want to bridge the gap with racism in our part of the country.
That gap is wide and ancient, but Craig's focus ranges beyond his city's limits. He's also eager to bridge this country's urban-rural divide.
I just want folks to know that Oklahoma don't stop at McAllister. We're human down here. We're folks down here in Southeast Oklahoma. And that's all I want folks to know, that we're here. And come on down to Southeast Oklahoma and see who we are. We have good things to offer down here in Southeast Oklahoma.
For Focus Black Oklahoma, I'm Nick Alexandrov in Idabel.
Some headlines from across the state.
Tulsa Public Schools passed 4 propositions in a special election bond vote on June 8th. The approved bond measures total $414 million. Proposition 1 is for a $166.7 million bond proposal that would go towards school safety, accessibility, and security improvements. Proposition 2 totals $90.7 million for student and classroom technology, including network system and security upgrades and technology. Proposition 3 for $17.3 million is for transportation, which includes continuing the district's transition to buses that use compressed natural gas. And for $139.3 million, Proposition 4 will go toward learning materials and programs including Greenwood Rising educational materials, textbooks, STEM program and lab updates, support for students with special needs, and resources for language learning. The significantly smaller Navajo Public Schools district in Jackson County also passed a bond proposition for $465,000 to be used to purchase new vehicles for student transportation. Funding from school bond issues must be spent on improvements to the school district, such as construction, repairs, technology, transportation, and acquiring furniture and equipment. Bond issuances provide funding for districts via loans that are paid back over time with local property tax revenues. These bonds may help Oklahoma exit the bottom 10 public education systems in the country. According to state law, school bond measures must receive a supermajority of at least 60% of the vote in order to be approved. Tulsa's bonds passed with a 75% majority.
The Oklahoma Department of Corrections has begun its distribution of digital tablets to inmates. The devices allow inmates to access prison policy, law libraries, and some self-help and educational materials. Inmates will also be allowed to access photos, videos, and emails from family members, as well as music and television programs. Securus Technology will be providing these tablets and rendering digital services that are above market value, according to a 2019 report from Prison Policy Initiative. These inflated costs will be lucrative for the private company, while possibly burdening incarcerated individuals and their families. The Department of Corrections will receive $3.5 million annually from Securus Technology for the first 5 years of the contract, and $3.75 million for the 5 years following. None of the money will be distributed to Oklahoma communities that were impacted by the charged crimes.
The young woman who filmed the death of George Floyd was recently awarded a Pulitzer Prize special citation. Darnella Frazier is the first person in U.S. history to win the award for a cell phone video. Frazier's cell phone video was a central piece of evidence in the case against Derek Chauvin, the officer who murdered George Floyd in June of 2020. Chauvin was found guilty of 2 counts of murder and 1 count of manslaughter.
27 more graves have been found this June at Oaklawn Cemetery as part of the efforts to find the remains of 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre survivors. This is in addition to the 15 graves that were found in October of 2020, bringing the total graves uncovered to 42. All of the graves up to this point have been in coffins, which may point to the cause of death as the 1918 to 1919 flu pandemic.
The Greenwood Rising Museum is set for grand opening in July. Greenwood Rising commemorates the history of the rise and fall of the Greenwood district of Tulsa. It's broken up into 3 parts. The Greenwood Spirit displays the significance of Black Wall Street. The Arc of Oppression focuses on the historical racial tensions in America in the 1920s, including the Tulsa Race Massacre. And The Journey to Reconciliation explores Greenwood's efforts to rebuild its community and how urban renewal decimated those efforts.
Tulsa's Greenwood Business District has been named to the National Register of Historic Places. The Oklahoma Historical Society said that, quote, "This district, also known as Black Wall Street, was the economic, cultural, and professional center for Tulsa's African American community. The 100 block of North Greenwood Avenue helped provide a foundation for African American community building through the mid-20th century. It remains an important symbol of African American identity, cultural innovation, and free enterprise," unquote. Placement on the National Register of Historic Places opens possibilities for businesses and property owners to seek historic preservation tax credits for business development and property improvement. Placement on the National Register also means that research into any potential negative impact on the district must be conducted before any federal project can commence. The National Register of Historic Places is the United States' official list of properties significant because of their historic past.
A Hudson, Ohio veteran was censored during a Memorial Day ceremony when his microphone was turned off mid-speech. The mic was turned off when he began to speak about how freed Black slaves contributed to the origins of the Memorial Day holiday. Cindy Suchin, chair of the Memorial Day Parade Committee and president of the Hudson American Legion Auxiliary, and Jim Garrison, former adjutant of the Hudson Lee Bishop American Legion Post 464, premeditated the censoring of the speech. It's not clear which of the two decided to turn off the microphone. It was determined not to be an audio malfunction according to both the American Legion Department of Ohio and the aforementioned Cindy Suchin.
North Tulsa has a new grocery store. Oasis Fresh Market opened its doors in early June. It is the first grocery store to be located in the North Tulsa community for over a decade. The grocery store will offer fresh fruits and vegetables to North Tulsans who have historically only had Dollar General stores and Quick Trips as shopping options. Councilor Vanessa Hall Harper, in partnership with Tulsa Economic Development Corporation, spearheaded the project in hopes to end the decade-old food apartheid and offer healthier eating options to residents. You're listening to Focus Black Oklahoma. The cannabis business in Oklahoma has grown into a multi-million-dollar industry. Yet, like so many other industries across our state, Black growers and sellers find prosperity elusive. Judy Williams shares details in the first of a series titled Blacks and Cannabis.
The issue of cannabis use in the U.S. has been controversial for several decades. Opponents condemn it as a danger to people and society, while advocates defend its proven health benefits. At the state level, the issue of cannabis use has evolved. Currently, cannabis for medical use is legal in 36 states. One liberal estimate is that there are 7,000 cannabis dispensaries nationwide. According to CanInclusive.com, there are over 600 reported Black-owned dispensaries across the country. Oklahoma became the 30th state to legalize cannabis for medicinal use when voters approved State Question 788 in 2018. Since then, the Oklahoma cannabis business has grown into a multi-million-dollar industry regulated by the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority, known as OMMA. In 2020, Oklahoma was noted as being second in the nation for the most dispensaries per capita. Similar to trends from other states that have legalized some form of cannabis use, Oklahoma struggles with racial disparities in this industry. According to OMMA's website, there are currently over 2,200 dispensaries in Oklahoma. According to CanInclusive.com, less than 2% of those are Black-owned. The American Civil Liberties Union in 2020 reported that Black people are 4 times more likely to be arrested for cannabis in Oklahoma. Ebony Farashu is a Tulsa author, legal cannabis user, and a brand ambassador for the Women in Weed Group, an organization that seeks to destigmatize cannabis use and specifically empower women cannabis users. She recalls how she felt when she found out State Question 788 was passed.
Then they legalized it. And I found myself on the 4th of July, around the 4th of July, sitting around waiting a few years ago for them to tally the votes when we voted on it. And I was like, oh my God, they voted yes. And everybody who thought I was a good girl was like, why is she so happy? Why is she so elated that they're legalizing marijuana? Because I knew that it was something that would help me.
Ebony explains how cannabis has benefited her health.
And I realized there were different strains of marijuana, there were different types of marijuana. You have indica, you have sativa. And I realized that when I used the indica, it relaxed me. And it relaxed my entire body. And all the pain that I had in my body slowly fade. I have arthritis in my knees. I've had knee surgery on both knees. I have high blood pressure. I have hemiplegic migraines.
She went on to describe the debilitating effects of hemiplegic migraines that sometimes led to hospitalization, and says with indica, she has been able to prevent serious migraines. It also helps with anxiety.
I have racing thoughts all the time. I have a lot of anxiety. When I use my gummy, that's they're serenading us. When I use my gummy, those racing thoughts sometimes, they're silenced, and I'm able to sleep.
When asked about the stigma of cannabis in the Black community, Ebony discussed common stereotypes and perceptions.
I haven't really felt a huge stigma on marijuana in the Black community. People on the outside, other races, Caucasians, looking into the Black community and seeing somebody smoking weed or eating gummies and things like that, even though that's stuff they kids are doing all the time, when we do it, we're criminals.
She noted that getting her OMMA card was an easy process and believes the biggest challenge is overcoming one's own reservations. When asked about how she feels about her personal safety and security, Ebony replied,
I think that we just need to help people, and so I don't feel like it's going to affect my security, and I don't feel like it's going to affect the way I live or the way I do things. It hasn't. If anything, hell, it made me a little calmer.
She reflects on the racial dynamics, but is skeptical about these inequities being remedied.
And I do see a few Black dispensary owners, and I'm really proud that they're able to do that. But the ratio is crazy. And I would love to see a brother get out of jail, brother or a sister get out of jail for marijuana and get those charges dismissed and then open a dispensary. But that's not going to happen. It's going to be hard because people are going to see, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Yes. And then they're going to discount them just because of that.
Ebony relates her personal experience when talking to others about cannabis use.
I just tell people what it's done for me. And I don't try to convince people. If that's not what you want to do, don't do that. But this is what works for me.
Ebony was optimistic when asked about the future of Black people in the cannabis industry.
I think that in the future, because our young kids are brilliant. Our youth are, oh my God, they're so inclusive and they're so smart and they're so business savvy. I think that we're going to see more Black-owned dispensaries. And I think they're going to offer just as much, if not more. And I would love to see just more outreach into the community.
For Focus Black Oklahoma, I'm Judy Williams in Tulsa.
A Poteau civil rights advocate was honored and remembered for his contributions as the city celebrated Juneteenth and other events centered on racial justice. Jamie Glisson has the story.
We are here to say that all lives can't matter until Black lives matter. If we just show up here and we fail to show up at the voting booth, none of this will matter.
That was Naomi Andrews on Juneteenth last year at a March for Justice rally in Poteau. The group Loving Neighbors of Eastern Oklahoma organized the event to honor the Black lives lost at the hands of law enforcement and Eastern Oklahoma's own civil rights pioneer, Dr. John W. Montgomery. Dr. Montgomery played a pivotal role in the integration of schools in Poteau. In 1955, he told the all-white school board that integration was now law and that Poteau was ready to lead the way for change. The motion passed with only one dissenting vote. After serving as an Army First Sergeant during World War II, Dr. Montgomery attended Prairie View A&M for his undergraduate degree and went on to earn his doctorate in veterinary medicine from Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. In 1951, he moved with his wife, Doris, to Poteau, Oklahoma, and opened the first veterinary hospital and started his family. Doris and Dr. Montgomery had two children, John Montgomery and Dr. Mildred Randolph. I spoke with Dr. Randolph recently about her father's life and legacy.
A pivotal experience for him was they took the train from Tacoma, Washington, down to where my mom's parents were in Galveston, Texas. And remember my dad saying that he was trying to get some food because they were hungry, and they were denied service on the train. And he says the stark thing about it was that prisoners of war, German prisoners of war, were on the train sitting in very nice conditions, tablecloths. And he said, here I am, a sergeant in the Army, and I can't get a sandwich for my wife.
Last summer, when our country once again entered a state of turmoil due to the continued killing of Black men and women, a group of concerned and passionate citizens organized a March for Justice through the historic downtown area of Poteau. While many locals showed up and showered the group with thanks and well wishes, a small number of people gathered in protest online and in person. Online, threats to the safety of the attendants were made, and rumors of Antifa bussing in others from around the country started to spread. When the event started, the counter-protesters drove up and down the street in front of the Poteau courthouse, in large trucks donned with Trump and rebel flags. Some honked for long periods of time, while others revved their engines loudly to drown out those speaking at the event. When the march started, the first opposition group encountered wore white pride T-shirts and shouted Trump 2020 while waving American flags. I asked Mildred if seeing those things bothered her or tarnished the experience in any way.
No, not at all. I was the positivity of Poteau doing that. I was so in awe. The fact that Poteau organized a Black Lives Matter, when I think of my parents' journey there, my brother and I were jaw-dropping surprised that they did that it was as successful as it was, that there were the amount of people supporting. So that little dab of contentious people over there, drop in the bucket.
Dr. Montgomery was warned against moving to Poto, but he persevered anyway. For a while, he was the only vet in Lafleur, Haskell, and Latimer counties and made nearly 30 house calls a day.
It was a full-time job. My dad trying to navigate his practice as a young Black professional. So you go from having clients that have been calling the ag teacher out to deliver a calf, and now they have a professional there, and this person is not embodied in who they expected. So him, experiencing all sorts of insults in, oh my God, you're a good nigga vet. I could go on and on and on.
Dr. Montgomery served on the Board of Regents for 25 years for Oklahoma State University and A&M colleges, including twice as chairman. He was the first African American to do so.
I think one of the joys of his life was being on the Board of Regents for A&M universities, which included Langston and OSU and all that whole umbrella of schools, and being a person of color that could raise issues at the level where change and decisions are made was, I'm sure, a highlight of his career. Here's the grandson of a slave who's speaking at Congress to save an HBCU. That's a leap.
Dr. John W. Montgomery was inducted into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame in 2000. In 2014, at the age of 97, Dr. Montgomery passed away, leaving behind a trailblazing legacy. For Focus Black Oklahoma, I'm Jamie Glisson in Poto.
Black home with rich cultural significance was recently added to the National Register of Historic Places. Christy Eaton explains how the home's owner was unaware of its importance.
Doris Youngblood was driving through northeast Oklahoma City several years ago when she spotted a home that caught her eye. She had no idea it once belonged to Dr. Wyatt Hardy Slaughter. He was a well-known doctor and advocate in Oklahoma City's Black community.
Years ago, the home was up for sale, and I just happened to notice it in the car driving with my husband. And I told him, I was like, look at that wonderful home on a hill. And of course, at that time, it was covered in vines, and it kind of, it had a lot of character, but it looked a little scary as well. So he literally stepped on the gas and sped up, and he was like, that's a money trap.
But she adds, they later learned about its unique history.
Once we looked and viewed the home, we were just in love with it. And at the time, believe it or not, we had no idea about the history. It was a real estate agent that asked us if we knew it was Dr. Slaughter's home. My husband and I both are Oklahoma born and bred. We had no idea. So she gave us this story, and we were just amazed and decided to go ahead and put in a bid for the home and won it. And then I really started researching because I was like, my goodness, this place is just awesome.
The home has been added to the National Register of Historic Places. It has both unique history and unique architecture, says Youngblood.
Dr. Slaughter was intertwined with so many people that were significant in Oklahoma that I had actually heard of, like Roscoe Dungy, people of that status, Charlie Christian. But I had no idea that he had actually built the majority of buildings on 2nd Street, which they called Deep Second or Deep Deuce as we know it today. And not only that, he actually had financed some of the businesses. He was not only a doctor, he was an architect, he was a builder, he was a financer.
She notes that he succeeded in a time when it was especially challenging for African Americans in Oklahoma.
In the early 1900s, he was the richest Black man in Oklahoma. And not only that, he owned his own airport. I mean, this was mind-boggling to me because I knew all the opposition that Blacks faced in Oklahoma during this time, segregation, just so much oppression, Jim Crow laws. And yet he succeeded. And he didn't only succeed and take care of himself, which he could have, just taking care of him and his family. He was a civic leader. He made sure that he contributed to his community.
Linda Ozan is the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer. She notes some of the unique features of the home.
What makes this one so unusual is obviously the extensive design work on it, as well as the fact that it's 2 stories. Most people, when they think of craftsman-style houses, don't think of a 2-story house. They think of the small little bungalows that we see in the neighborhoods. And this one is far more elaborate. And it has some amazing details on it that include, these big arched entries on the porch that make it look more prominent than a typical craftsman-style house would, as well as the more common features like the dormers with the exposed brackets and the window types. It's a very distinctive house.
Youngblood and her husband have started a nonprofit to preserve similar legacies and stories.
We started a nonprofit just for this reason. It's called Oklahoma Black Living Legacy. And what we do is try to preserve these stories, these legacy of these great Black Oklahomans, and also make sure that in the future that it's taught, told to Oklahomans and anyone that's interested nationally, internationally, because it's great history.
To learn more about the home and Dr. Slaughter's story, visit themansionokc.com. For Focused Black Oklahoma, I am Christy Eaton in Oklahoma City.
This month, a Tulsa-based poet launched a new literary and art anthology in observance of the centennial of the 1921 Race Massacre. Alyssa Brown has more.
Tulsa's Black Wall Street Legacy Festival was an interactive and creative weekend for Tulsa during the centennial observation of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Amongst performances and festival activities, Fatodi Mshairi hosted the launch party of his new anthology, Release Me, The Spirits of Greenwood Speak. Fatodi served as an editor on the new anthology that is a part of the Greenwood Art Project. The anthology is a combination of poems, essays, photographs, paintings, and more. The book includes hundreds of artists such as author Hannibal B. Johnson and Poet Laureate of the United States, Joy Harjo. Mshairi has been performing since he was about 5 years old. He is a renowned poet and performer in the Tulsa area. I went out to the opening of the new public art installation, Society's Cage, and had the opportunity to chat with Mshairi about his new anthology, the contributors, and the future of Greenwood.
There will be a lot of talk, a lot of installations, a lot of artwork about the massacre, about the death. And I feel that there should be life. We should speak life and talk about the principles that built Greenwood and the lives of the people who live there.
Mshairi expressed his gratitude and excitement about the anthology's official release and his position on the Greenwood Art Project.
We are in the midst of a Greenwood renaissance. The world is talking about Greenwood, artists are creating about Greenwood, and to be home and creating and writing and building about home, it feels good, and it feels good to be a part of a larger anthology. I think the Greenwood Art Project is a larger anthology because all of the different installations and artists are together to create one particular. There are a lot of moving pieces that are put together to make one project, which is the Greenwood Art Project. It feels good to be a part of that.
I asked Mshairi about Greenwood's future and what he believes Tulsa can do to make those strides.
Well, we need the most work in traveling, taking the principles of building communities outside of just Greenwood. We have to have the mindset that wherever we are, wherever we happen to live, we can build a thriving community.
Mshairi had a vision with Release Me and knew what artists could truly fit the recipe of his anthology, as he described it.
I was looking for someone who embodied the spirit of Greenwood, someone who could speak well for the spirits of Greenwood.
Shairi says the best way to hold true remembrance for Greenwood while rebuilding it 100 years later is by staying true to ourselves and living our purpose. I asked Shairi if he would read a poem from Release Me that embodied the Black Wall Street Legacy Festival and Greenwood. He read an excerpt from the poem We Are Greenwood by Samantha L. Steele.
Remember us, not for the battles you have left to fight, uprooting systems of unholy righteousness. Remember us as we blaze a trail intent that you would follow. Remember us in our unity upon one common foundation, a self-sustaining community. Remember us in how you seek right knowledge and build in your memory a new Greenwood that expands past Tulsa. Remember us in the blueprint that is sure to inspire like a phoenix that rose from the fiery ash, embers that kindle majestic feats of many Black Wall Streets.
You can find Shairi's anthology and more on newgreenwoodllc.com. For Focus Black Oklahoma, I'm Alyssa Brown in Tulsa.
You're listening to Focus Black Oklahoma.
A new exhibit centered on the trauma of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre and the resilience of its residents vibrantly transports visitors back in time. Devin Williams introduces us to the curator of this exhibit.
Lincoln Cochran built a time machine in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a corridor connecting multiple businesses in a building on the historic Greenwood Avenue has been transformed into a museum-worthy exhibit. The Marvin Blades Faces of Greenwood experience is a historical kaleidoscope that shows the joy, pain, trauma, and resilience of the Greenwood community.
You know, we were of an equivalent size and space of Atlanta at the same time. So imagine what Tulsa and Oklahoma could have become if it was allowed to embrace itself and then grow further. I am a native Tulsan. I went to elementary school at Emerson, right over the hill from where we are in Greenwood right now. I would say at Booker T, we were in a unique position because we were taught the basics of the history, and that in and of itself was controversial because there are very frank accounts of overt and covert racism that were perpetrated against the people who lived here. You know, there are photographs of bodies on the street that have been burned, but that is not the whole story. The most affluent African-American, Black, Native, minority enclave existed in America. You know, Tulsa was the Las Vegas of the Midwest for years. It is a magic city and it is a magic place. And that's why it does have that moniker. And it's time that we all share in that, because I believe it is a key to our future. My name is Lincoln Cochran, and I am the curator of the Faces of Greenwood Timeline Experiences. For years, we would come to Black Wall Street and we would visit these businesses, and a lot of our students would connect, of course, and they would buy things, but that would be the extent of, you know, their real connection with history. When you look at it in view of this timeline as just a beginning or a starting point, you really see it in the totality of what it was and what it is and what it can be. Marvin Blades is a law enforcement professional from our community. In 2016, I was going through a lot of the materials that were here in Greenwood, and Mr. Blades had unfortunately passed away, and his wife had left these collages to the chamber, and there were 18 of them. And they covered such an expanse of history, So I took said collages, I cut them apart, I added 2,000 photographs, I added costumes from each period, and I spread it out in a 1,000 square foot hallway that covers 1895 to 2020. And it was a labor of love for me because this was at the height of COVID. I built this by myself over 6 weeks during November and December of last year, and we opened to the public for MLK in January. My legacy is in creating this to leave people thinking, and to me, that is the most important part. It's so easy to become complacent today with our instant media and the constant wash from the television and Netflix and the news. I'm not in the business of telling people what to think. Black Wall Street Alliance creates experiences that draw the community to historic places, and that's exactly what it's all about. It's for you to form your own conclusions about the history that happened with the best facts available. And that's what it is for me.
Cochran's goal is for visitors to develop a fuller perspective of Greenwood using the facts presented in the Faces of Greenwood timeline experience. The exhibit will be open through the end of 2021. For ticket information, visit the Marvin Blade Senior Faces of Greenwood experience on Facebook. For Focus, Black, Oklahoma, I'm Devin Williams in Tulsa.
Mother Earth is in good hands thanks to these Black women who are championing recycling and teaching others to embrace it as well. Sandra Slade shares more.
Reuse, recycle, go green or we'll scream. Don't be mean, just go green. Mother Nature rules. I see these bumper stickers all the time. I try hard not to roll my eyes at them. Not because of what they say, it's usually just that there's so many of them on one car. I'm like, I get it. At my house, I take out the trash. It's the same ritual. We run around and grab all the old store plastic bags in the small trash cans and take them out. I ensure that not only ours, but our neighbors' trash and recycle bins are pushed to the corner. Once, I sent my kids to Camp Go Green, and afterwards, they made it clear to me that we needed to do our part to lower our carbon footprint in the world, whatever that means. So we have a trash can and recycle bin in the house, and I am admonished on a daily basis for not paying attention to what I put where. One morning, I was walking to pull the trash and recycle bins back to the house when my always cheerful neighbor approached me wanting to ask a question. As I try to walk faster, she's getting closer. Yoo-hoo, neighbor, can I ask you a question? I do my neighborly smile and stop. Sandra, I noticed you were pulling your trash and recycle bins back. That is great. I put the bins down because I knew this was going to be a long, quick question. Sure, what's the question, I say. My neighbor says, I really noticed that you're bringing your recycle bins. Do you use your recycle bins a lot? I stood there, flabbergasted, and I felt myself starting to reel. Was she really asking me, do Black people recycle? I felt my smile starting to fade, and I stared into the distance. I thought, oh, so now I have to be a library on recycling. And without hesitation, I launched on my soapbox. Yes, we do. I didn't grow up with the privilege to just throw something away. Nothing is thrown out of a Black household unless it has been used, and reused. Native and Black people practically invented recycling. We've been green. Native people use every part of the buffalo, and Black people, since Plymouth Rock landed on us, have been recycling. Did you know that Pinterest and DIY hacks are really just another word for rigging? I knew as a child things could serve dual purposes. Seeing my neighbor's eyes widen, I thought to myself, well, let me take you on this journey. Clearing my throat, I continued. I could still hear my mom and my aunt letting me have it if I was about to throw something out. Don't throw that away, girl. You can use that again. We ain't wasteful in here. Then they would proceed to show me what I could do with the item. Allow me to get a little bit more technical. I mean, we were given the scraps and the leftovers and made what is now called Southern comfort food. If you enter a Black person's kitchen, you are liable to find a margarine or Cool Whip container. These containers are continually used long after the original item has been consumed. If an item cannot serve more than one purpose, it's rarely bought. For instance, the plastic grocery bags are converted to small trash bags, shower caps, and even holding flour for seasoning. The 2-part takeout container now has tomorrow's lunch. The empty ice cream bucket is used to hold all hair care products. A glass spice jar is a holder of all things from nails, screws, and paper clips. Even a shoebox is converted to a drawer divider. A spaghetti jar will hold previously cooked oil to be used again. An old t-shirt is cut up and used for rags. An empty, used medicine bottle is likely to be filled with any small item and not relabeled. Empty jelly jars are used for drinking glasses. Dryer sheets used to wipe up dust. Paper towel holder is used to hold a scarf. Instead of a glove, a mismatched old sock is used to clean with. On the coffee table, an old vase is holding candy. I remember I would cut up a paper bag to use as a book cover, and the Crown Royal bag is the ultimate universal reused item. Oh my goodness! It is used to hold anything from loose change, rollers, sewing kits, travel items, and even to make a blanket. The possibilities are endless. As I close my small library, I notice that my neighbor is looking perplexed, and I figured I've really given her a quick tutorial on how and why Black people recycle. She says, that's all great information, Sandra. I just really wanted to know if you knew that they had different sizes of recycle containers. I smiled, placed my hands back on the bins, and smugly said yes, but we use a small one because we hardly throw anything out.
Focus Black Oklahoma is produced in partnership with KOSU Radio, Tulsa Artist Fellowship, and Tri-City Collective. Our theme music is by Moffitt Music. Our featured artists are Earl Grant and Micah Music. You can find Earl Grant's music on Spotify and Micah Music's tracks on SoundCloud. Focus Black Oklahoma's executive producer is Quraish Ali Lansana. Our associate producers are Bracken Clark, Nick Alexandrov, and Vanessa Gaona. Visit us online at kosu.org, tricitycollective.com/Focus Black Oklahoma, and YouTube at Tri-City Collective. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Focus Black OK.
What's going on in your city? Black Oklahoma mind. What's going on in your city?
Support for Focus Black Oklahoma on KOSU comes from the Black Church Traditions and African American Faith Life program at Phillips Seminary, with a weekly chapel service celebrating Black History and African Heritage Month online at wherefaithleads.com/heritage.
It's been 100 years, and many people still know nothing about the Tulsa Race Massacre.
This was and still remains the largest race massacre since the Civil War, and it has been pretty much hidden from history until very recently.
Blind Spot, Tulsa Burning, in a new series from the History Channel and WNYC Studios, in collaboration with KOSU and Focus Black Oklahoma. Listen wherever you find podcasts.